Hi, Marcia here again, and today I want to share with you information on a topic that many people are struggling with. And I'm going to be sharing from my experience as a John Maxwell leadership coach. And the area that people struggle with a lot is how do I resolve conflict and lead challenging people? This is the question. And many of us as leaders are unable to deal with this challenging question. So one of the things I want to share today is, let me go back here. 1 second. Is how do I resolve this conflict and lead challenging people? And the first thing that I want to share is that it is something that many of us struggle with. And let me be frank, the answer to this chapter, or the answers in what I'm going to share today, will work only with people who actually want to change. So if you have persons on your team who are not willing to change or don't want to work with you or have the desire to change, this is not something that is going to be easy for you to do. So I want you to also understand that if people do not want to follow you or to be productive members of the team and will not change, it doesn't make you a bad leader. And this is where many people think it's their fault. It just means you have someone on the team who is not good for the team and the organization. The problem and the challenge you can face is that you will cross into bad leadership if you make the choice to keep someone on the team when you shouldn't. That is a problem. And too often leaders wait. They don't want to make the difficult decisions. And you know what the truth is? They hope to God that the people will change on their own or offer them some challenging or some pathway to change. But when people on the team, and I want to read this to you, are creating conflict or dragging the team down, many leaders think, and this is what they think, I have failed the team somehow. Let me try harder. Let me try something different. Maybe if I put them on the team somewhere else, maybe things will turn around. And I'm going to tell you folks, from my how much years of experience, that rarely works. John Maxwell, now what I'm sharing with you today is from his book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And so as a John Maxwell coach, I chose this topic because I see it as an area that holds many people back. And so you have to learn that moving people around, shuffling them around is not the answer. One of the things we have to recognize is that everyone as a team member deserves our best shot as a leader to help them succeed, which means we must try. And I agree, we should. But when you give a team member a chance, they don't deserve repeated chances, especially at the expense of others on the team. So if you give somebody a chance and they keep choosing to do the wrong things or to not make the changes, then we have to understand that if we allow them to keep doing the same things, giving them chances over and over again, as I've seen people do with some team members for years, it's not fair to the rest of the team. And many of us don't want to make the hard decisions. But I want to say this to you leaders who are online with me. They must be made. And the sooner you make them is the better. So good leaders are direct and decisive in these matters. And so what you want to ask yourself is this: is this best for the team? Companies don't succeed, folks. I want you to know this. People do. And a chain is as strong as its weakest link. So what you have to ask yourself is this best for the team, for me to keep this team member who is challenging and will not change or is difficult? But if keeping someone who is difficult isn't best for the team, then you're going to have to make the difficult choice to get him or her off the team. So the question is, how can a leader, I'm going to outline to you some things today, so take your notes, grab your pen and paper. How can a leader move an individual from unteachable to teachable? How can a leader demand the change of a bad attitude from an employee? And we know what bad attitudes are. You know, they always say, the bad egg spoils the batter. All right? How can a leader lead someone with a passive aggressive personality who is loyal and effective but is hindering the team? So sometimes you can have somebody, who is loyal and effective, but their attitude and their personality is hindering the team. They don't work well with the team. How can a leader handle an angry employee? And how can a leader deal with a person who does not want to be led? Those are some of the questions that we have to ask. And anytime you have difficulty with people you lead, whether it is a negative attitude, poor performance, lack of cooperation, or some other issue, folks, you need to start a process. And I'm going to outline the process today. So as I said, get your pen and paper out. I had these screens developed before, these slides, and for some reason or other, they're not coming up. So I'm going to ask you guys to just bear with me and just take the notes as I give them to you. All right? So before I lay out the process to you, I want you to write out 2 questions you need to ask before you get started. And the first question you need to ask of yourself when you're looking at this team member, 2 important questions. The first one is, can they change? Can they change? And this question deals with their ability to change. The second question is, will they change? This one deals with attitude. And let me tell you something. Most of the questions that people pose when dealing with difficult people is not about ability, it is about attitude. So for this process to be successful, when you're asking people to change, because you need them to change for the good of the team, the answer to both those questions of can they change and will they change has to be yes. You can't have one yes to one and no to the other. The answer to both questions, follow me on this one, must be yes. Can they change? You have to set yes. If your answer is yes, and will they change? And the answer is yes, then you can use this process. If the answer is no to either of them, then you are going to have to look at the fact that if that is so, then you may have to work this person off of your team. Because if people are able and willing to change, then there's a chance that you can be successful. But if the answer to any of those is no, the chances are you won't. So here are the points. I think it is 5 in total that I'm going to go through with you. This is a process to follow. So if your answer to both of those questions, can they change and will they change, is yes, then follow this process. The first one is, and this is what many leaders are afraid to do. I just came off a session where I keep saying to leaders, you need to have one-on-one meetings with your direct reports. That's where development takes place. And most people are meeting one-on-one with their team members at the end of the year when it's performance review time, if they do performance reviews. But you need to meet privately, not publicly. You need to meet privately as soon as possible with them to discuss their behavior. You have to start. So it's very important that you sit them down, set an appointment, and level with them with all the integrity and honesty you can muster. Sit down and very clearly lay out what the issue is that you're having with them. What is the behavior? And give specific, tangible examples of this undesirable action or behavior. Don't be vague. So this requires leadership on your part. This requires that you prepare yourself for the discussion. And for God's sake, do not use second-hand reports. So don't come to them and say, well, I want to meet with you on this particular behavior that I heard someone else say. No, it's not second-hand reports. So you want to know that this is something that you have seen and have observed. Don't attribute bad motives to them because they'll only get defensive. But in fact, go into the conversation assuming that their motives are good and what you are here to do is to help them. And this is more likely to make them more open to change and willing to make the corrections that they'll need to make. And it's very important that people understand how their actions or behavior are negatively affecting the organization, the team, or you. That's what they need to understand. Many people don't understand how their behaviors or actions actually impact the team until you sit with them and say it to them. So another thing to do is never go into that meeting angry. So if you do, you will also reduce your chances of success. So psychologist William James said, whenever you're in conflict with someone, there is one factor that can make the difference between damaging your relationship and deepening it. And the factor is attitude. If your attitude is positive, your mindset should be then to give them the benefit of the doubt. And this is usually very hard for us, especially if it is something that you have observed for so long and you have already within your mind some preconceived notions or ideas about their behavior or the motive behind it. But it's very important that you give them the benefit of the doubt and that you truly want to help the person. Because if you don't, you shouldn't have this conversation, right? The second step, so the first one is as soon as possible, sit with them and meet with them privately and outline the behavior or the action and how it is negatively impacting you, the team, or the organization. That's point one. Point two, ask for their side of the story. Folks, this is so important. Peter Drucker said, erroneous assumptions can be disastrous. And it's very important that sometimes circumstances such as a personal tragedy can sometimes be temporarily prompting unwanted behavior. And the person simply needs help or understanding. That's why you don't want to go in angry or with guns blazing at them, because you might be wrong. So listen. We always say, listen twice as much as you speak. So when you sit them down, ask their side of the story as to why they're behaving in this way. What is causing this action or behavior? Then the third thing is try to come to a place of agreement. Now, at this point, it's time to find out if they agree with you or not. So Former Secretary of State Jean Acheson stated, negotiation in the classic diplomatic sense assumes parties more anxious to agree than to disagree. And that's the right attitude to bring into this process. You want to come to some place of agreement. So, if you have said that, okay, this is what we agree is, you're right, this is the problem. If you have come to the point, and I want to state this clearly, if you have come to the point where the person says, you're right, this is the problem I have, it can be very humbling for them, but it opens them up for change, and that's ideal. And you can help someone with that kind of attitude. However, and I want to be fair and be direct with you, many times people will say, no, it's someone else's problems. And when that happens, I tell them, this is what John says, I believe I'm right, and this is your problem. So I'm going to give you a week. Now, what you're saying to them is that if they are not accepting that it is their problem, you say to them, I believe that in this particular situation, I'm right, and it is your problem. So I'm going to give you a week to think about it. So give them some time to think about it, because before you have come to this meeting, you know for sure that this is a behavior or action that they have taken. So they cannot pass the buck. So you're saying, go ahead, I'm going to give you a week to think more about it. And the hope is that they'll give it some honest thought, and that they will maybe ask other people who know them well and who will be honest with them. So after you've given them a week, you meet again with them and you ask, do you agree that this is your problem? If they have a change of heart and agree with you, and you can move forward to the next step, because they have taken a very important step, and that is responsibility. But if they still don't agree, then you may need to say, you may not agree with what I've just said, but I'm going to say to you, you will have to agree to change and follow my guidelines if you want to remain on the team. Now, this is very important. So after you've given them that process to go through it, you are firm on what the team needs. You are firm on the behavior that is important to the team. So you're going to say to them, while you may not agree, I'm saying to you that if you're going to remain on this team, you'll have to agree to change and follow my guidelines. And I am going to hold you accountable. Now, this is a problem with many leaders. Accountability starts with us first. So if we say that, then we have got to follow through with holding that person accountable. Because if not, they will realize that you aren't serious. Very important. The fourth thing is then to set out a future course of action, and a course of action with a deadline. So it doesn't matter whether the person agrees with you or not. You must lay out a specific course of action for them to take, which means, folks, that you need to sit down before you have that meeting with them and be clear about the specific course of action that you want them to take. Be specific. Indicate any actions they must not take or behaviors that they must cease starting immediately. This is a difficult discussion. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. But we always hear that the issue in our country and in companies And in everything where things are not going right is lack of leadership. And leadership responsibility is to ensure that you hold people accountable. The team needs that from us as leaders. So, if there are action steps they will need to follow through on, lay those out, define them, and put deadlines on them. And make sure they understand. So, make sure that they are able to repeat what you have said to them. Ask them what their understanding is of what you have discussed. And then importantly, this is another problem when I go into companies and we talk about team members who are not performing. And you hear managers saying, well, the union is going to say this, or because, we don't have enough information. The problem is we do not properly define what people are supposed to do and what the consequences are when they don't. And then this third thing that you need to do in discussion is to put your requirements into writing. And so invariably, you have no grounds on which to have the conversation with about dismissal because you haven't put anything in writing. So you have these informal discussions, or you talk and you talk and you talk till you're blue in the face, but you don't document it. So when you have these discussions, you must put your requirements into writing. And if you don't both agree on what needs to happen in the future, you will both be frustrated. So there needs to be agreement. You need to lay out in writing what you expect them to do, the actions, and the deadline by which things need to start happening, and hold people accountable to it. The fifth thing is validate the value of the person and express your commitment to help. So when you have that meeting, at the end of it, let them know that you care about them. And this must be genuine. If you're going all this way, we always say people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Leaders who don't care about their team members allow them to get away with things or just fire them without trying to help them to become better. Our role is to have those discussions so that you can help to develop that team member to be the best that they can be. Our role is to serve our team members so that they can be the best performing team members for the good of the team and the company. And so they need your feedback. They need you to have those honest and fair discussions with them. I had a situation of a CEO who heard her manager, the manager of this particular team member, did not have this important discussion with his team member for years. And when that manager left, she now assumed the leadership of this particular person. And for the first time in how many years he had worked with this company, somebody, a leader, a manager of his, was sitting down to have an honest discussion with him about his actions and behavior that was causing the team and the company to suffer. And at the end of the discussion, because she did it with care, with integrity and honesty, and he realized that this leader had this difficult discussion because she had his interest at heart. And at the end of the discussion, he said to her, "Thank you for sharing with me, because that had never been discussed with me in all the years that I had been reporting to this manager." We owe it to our team members to help them. Just like you do with kids, you have the difficult discussion with your children so that they can change the behaviors or the attitudes that are causing them to not succeed, and that they will need to change in order to succeed in life. And you're doing it because you care. Well, it's the same in leadership. John Maxwell says, don't lead people if you don't love or care for people. Many people will say, oh boy, that is soft, mamby-pamby kind of language. What is that? Just give them goals and KPIs. While that's important, and it is important in every organization, we also have to lead with passion and heart and care and help people to change the behaviors. They can't see themselves, and it's your role to help to coach them to do so. So tell them how you will help them. So you have to come up with your particular action plan. Now, sometimes the greatest value that you as a leader can add to other people, as I said, comes from telling them the truth, showing them where they can grow, and then helping them to change. As a leader, you have a chance to help them. In this particular world right now, we need leaders who are willing to step up to the plate, because people are lost right now and feeling even more lost now in this COVID pandemic. Sitting down with people and telling them where they fall short isn't easy. What I'm asking of you and myself is not easy. And there's no guarantee, folks, that they will acknowledge their problem or change. Remember I said, do they have the ability to change? And are they willing to change? There's a strong chance that even after all of this, you will still have to ask that team member to leave. And if you're having a hard time making that decision, I have seen leaders stay. I have had clients I've coached where for years we've had the discussion about changing a team member, and the leader just kept going on, oh, maybe they'll change, oh, maybe they'll change. And for years, we held the team back, because I, as a coach, cannot make the decision for you as the leader. You have to do it yourself. Until finally, he made the decision, and the team just soared, and so did the company. So if you are having a hard time making that decision, ask yourself this question. Write this question down now. I always share this one with leaders. If I needed to hire new people, knowing what I know now, would I hire these individuals? Let me put it another way. If I was to close my company today and I had the liberty to start again with a new with a whole clean slate and open the company again, would I rehire any of the people I currently have on staff? If the answer to that question is yes, I would rehire them, then keep them. But if the answer is no, then let them go. If you know right now that given the opportunity to start again, would you rehire them? And the answer is no, then it means, folks, that you need to slowly work them out. If the answer is maybe, then reevaluate in 3 months. If the answer is that I don't know, I'm really not sure, give yourself 3 months. And then if the answer is still that you don't know, let me tell you, folks, the answer in truth and fact is really no. That's what it is. What is happening is that you're allowing your emotions to make it difficult for you to accept a hard decision. John said, Fred Smith, one of his mentors, said this: whenever I'm tempted not to act in a difficult personal situation, I ask myself, am I holding back for my personal comfort or for the good of the organization? If I'm doing what makes me comfortable, I'm embezzling. What he means is I'm stealing. If doing what is good for the organization also happens to make me comfortable, then that's wonderful. But if I'm treating irresponsibly, I must remember that two wrongs do not make a right. As a leader, you owe it to the rest of the team to make these tough choices. That is what you're paid for. I decided to do this topic today because I know that this is an area that people struggle with. I'm currently finishing this Good Leaders Ask Great Questions Leadership Mastermind with a team of leaders. And this particular chapter, I just covered one question out of these other questions that were asked. So here are all the questions that were asked in that particular chapter. And I chose to just answer the first one, which is the how can a leader and all of those other questions. But these are the other questions that are in that chapter. How do you raise the bar when people have gotten used to settling for mediocrity? How do you motivate an unmotivated person? How do you deal with people who start things but never finish? How can leaders help individuals move past their mistakes, filter out negative self-talk, and get on a path to success toward a better future? At what point do you turn your energy away from dissenters and low performers and focus on those who want to grow? How do you inspire your team to make its current work a career and something to be proud of and not just another job with a paycheck? How does one lead people who are more knowledgeable or superior leaders when put in charge of them? And how long do you push someone's potential when they are not reaching it? And how do you know a relationship is broken and how can you save it? So as I said, folks, I just covered question 1 today. I will invite you to our leadership mastermind when I next have it starting again. But this is a topic that I truly believe is extremely important for us as leaders to deal with conflict and leading challenging people. You know, when I first became a John Maxwell leadership coach, I remember I was in Orlando at the certification, and John Maxwell said to us at the start of the workshop, he said to us, there are like 4 doors out there. He says, is there anyone in here who does not love people? And he said, if you do not love people and want to serve people, then he said, I want you to walk through that door now, and my people will give you a full refund. Because he said it is a part of the John Maxwell DNA that if you're going to lead people, you must care for them, because it's about servant leadership. It's not about the corner office, and it's not about the title or the car. So if you take on this role of leadership, it's that you understand that your role is also to help the people that you have, to influence them, to serve them, so that they can reach their full potential. You know, there's a statement which says beautiful leaders are surrounded by beautiful butterflies, which means we have to help the team members we have on our team, just like butterflies who need to break out of a cocoon, caterpillars first, who are in a cocoon, and then they break out over time and become beautiful butterflies. We as leaders have to shape and to coach and to mentor and to help, especially our young people now who do not have proper role models as leaders. So I'm going to ask you to work on yourself first as a leader. You know, John Maxwell says to this day, at his age of being over 75, that he continues to learn and grow himself. There is never, ever an end to the amount that you can learn. So for us to be able to help Jamaica to get better, for us to be able to lead our team members and young people right now who are floundering out there, some working remotely and without the leadership to help them, we need to work on ourselves first so we can become better leaders to help them, so we can have a nation later on that will be abundant. The choices we make today will define our future Jamaica. So we need to help our team members. Don't give up on the difficult ones. If they have the ability to change and are willing to change, which is attitude, then as a leader, follow the steps that I outlined, which are, let me recap them, is for you to meet with this person privately to discuss their behavior. Ask for their side of the story. Try to come to a place of agreement. Set out a future course of action with a deadline, and then validate the value of the person and express your commitment to help them. Help them to become better team members for the good of the team. And I'm going to say one more thing. When we allow team members with a negative attitude or are challenging and that are not good for the team, and you allow their behavior or actions to go unnoticed or not addressed, you also diminish your leadership in the eyes of your people. They look at you and they will lose respect for you, and you will lose influence with them because they're saying, can't you see? Aren't you aware? Why are you allowing this? And invariably what we do is we put more work on top of the people who have great attitudes and are already great performers, are highly engaged. And you overwork them, leaving these persons with a poor attitude, bad behaviors to continue to be on the team. It undermines your leadership. So I'm going to ask you all to commit to looking at your team members and asking yourself that question. If I had the ability to rehire everyone tomorrow, would I rehire everybody on my team now? And if the answer to that is no, then you have some difficult discussions to start, and start with the process that I just gave you. So I'm now going to invite you to join us tomorrow. Coach Arlene is going to be doing a one-day workshop on Zoom on time and productivity. And I always want to say, time is not the issue because you cannot manage time. The issue is self-management in the passage of time. And so tomorrow in our time and productivity workshop, and I'll share the link in the post here shortly, is that we need, or Afrika, if you could just share the post for me, or I'll just share it to Facebook afterwards. And the important thing here is that we need to make sure that we are using the tools right now to help our team members to be more productive as they work remotely. Working remotely is different from working in an office. especially with all the distractions at home. So what we have committed to doing is putting on this time and productivity workshop so that we can help you and your team members to be able to access not just the information we're going to share tomorrow, but Coach Arlene is also going to be sharing some templates and tools that we use in coaching with our clients to help you to be way more productive. So I encourage you to join us for that workshop tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing you on it as well. And join our candid conversation this Thursday. You'll be hearing more about the topic, and that's going to be done along with Ian Nito from the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce and Arlene Martin with our guests this Thursday. So I'm going to ask you all to stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll see you next week, Tuesday. Take care. Bye-bye.